Something changed in America this year, quietly, without a press conference, without a warning letter. 22 million Americans are losing health coverage in 2026. Not at risk of losing it, not possibly losing it, losing it. The Center on Budget and Policy Priorities confirmed the number. The mechanism is the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, signed July 4, 2025. The ACA premium tax credits that kept insurance affordable for tens of millions of working Americans expired December 31, 2025. Premiums surged 75% or more overnight for millions of households. Medicaid work requirement provisions began activating this year. And right now, in June of 2026, millions of Americans are sitting in homes with no insurance card in their wallet and no plan for what happens when someone gets sick. This is not political commentary. This is arithmetic. 22 million people, no coverage. In a country where a single emergency room visit averages $2,200 before any treatment begins. Where a standard doctor's visit without insurance runs $250 to $500 out of pocket. Where a prescription antibiotic that costs $4 to manufacture retails for $40 to $180 without a pharmacy benefit. And here is what nobody in the healthcare conversation is saying out loud. There is a generation of Americans alive right now whose grandparents and great-grandparents never had health insurance. Not because they were poor, not because they were neglected, because health insurance as a product did not exist in widespread form until after World War II. Before that, Americans grew their medicine in kitchen gardens, in window boxes, in the strips of land beside farmhouse doors. 7 specific plants that pre-industrial American families cultivated not for cooking, not for decoration, but because they worked. And every single one of them is available at a garden center right now for $3 to $8 a plant. Stick with me, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly which 7 plants your great-grandparents grew, what they were historically used for, why herbalists and functional medicine practitioners are seeing a surge of interest in 2026, unlike anything in the last 40 years, and how to grow every one of them at home, whether you have an acre or a windowsill. This is not a medical prescription, this is history, and history is making a comeback faster than anyone predicted. Before we get to the plants, understand what's actually happening in American households right now. The Kaiser Family Foundation released data showing that 1 in 4 American adults already report skipping a recommended medical treatment in the last 12 months because of cost. That was before the 2026 coverage cuts activated. The number is higher now. People are searching for alternatives not because they distrust medicine, but because medicine has become financially inaccessible for a significant portion of the country. Google Trends data shows searches for medicinal herbs to grow at home increased 340% between January and May 2026. Seed suppliers across the country are reporting back-ordered inventory on specific herb varieties for the first time since the pandemic gardening surge of 2020. Something is shifting, and it's not trending on social media because someone made it look pretty. It's trending because millions of Americans are doing the math and looking for options their great-grandparents considered common knowledge. Options that the $4.5 trillion healthcare industry has had no financial interest in keeping in your awareness. Because you cannot patent a plant that's been growing in American soil for 300 years. Let's go through them. The first plant is elderberry, Sambucus nigra. Your great-grandparents called it elder. They grew it at the edge of the property. Every part of it was used. The berries were made into syrup and administered at the first sign of illness every winter. This was not superstition. Elderberry was listed in the United States Pharmacopoeia, the official drug reference guide, from 1820 to 1905. 85 years of official pharmaceutical recognition. Then synthetic medicine arrived. The Pharmacopoeia updated, and elder quietly disappeared from the mainstream conversation. What didn't disappear is the research. A 2016 randomized controlled trial published in Nutrients found elderberry supplementation reduced the duration of colds in air travelers by an average of 2 days. You can grow an elderberry shrub from a $6 nursery start. It reaches full productive size in 2 years. A mature plant produces several pounds of berries each fall. The second plant is calendula, bright orange flower. Looks decorative. Was anything but decorative to the families who grew it. Calendula was the field medicine of the American Civil War. Field surgeons applied it to wounds when supplies ran short. Not because someone told them to, because generations of practical knowledge said it helped. Modern research has validated what the Civil War surgeons observed. Studies published in the Journal of Wound Care and the Journal of Clinical Oncology have examined calendula's documented properties in topical applications. Calendula is one of the easiest plants you will ever grow. Direct sow seeds in spring. It grows in poor soil. It self-seeds, meaning once you plant it, it comes back on its own every year without you doing anything. Cost to start: $2 for a seed packet. The third plant is echinacea, purple coneflower. Native to the North American plains, used by at least 14 Native American tribes before European settlers arrived and adopted the practice. It was one of the best-selling botanical medicines in the United States in the late 1800s. Doctors prescribed it. Pharmacies stocked it. Then, in the 1940s, synthetic antibiotics arrived. The pharmaceutical industry reorganized entirely around patentable compounds, and echinacea got reclassified from medicine to garden flower. A 2015 Cochrane review, the gold standard of evidence synthesis, analyzed 24 randomized trials and found some echinacea preparations had a significant effect on the incidence and duration of the common cold. It grows as a perennial. Plant it once. It comes back every spring for 10 to 20 years. $4 at any garden center. The fourth plant is chamomile. You know it as tea. Your great-grandparents knew it as the plant that handled 3 things that sent people to the doctor: digestive distress, sleeplessness, and anxiety. Chamomile has been in documented medicinal use for over 5,000 years. Ancient Egyptians, Romans, and Greeks all cultivated it. Pre-industrial American households grew it in kitchen gardens and used it daily. When German pharmaceutical researchers began studying it in the 20th century, they identified apigenin, a compound that binds to the same brain receptors targeted by modern anti-anxiety medications. Not in the same concentration, not as a replacement, but the mechanism is not folklore. It is documented biochemistry. Chamomile grows in 8 weeks from seed. A single $2 packet of seeds produces enough for daily use through an entire season, and enough to dry for the winter. The fifth plant is yarrow. This one most people have never heard of. Your great-grandparents knew exactly what it was. Yarrow's botanical name is Achillea millefolium, named after Achilles. The legend holds that Achilles used it on his soldiers' wounds on the battlefield at Troy. Whether that's history or mythology, the practical use is documented fact. Yarrow was carried in Civil War medical kits. It was listed as a wound herb in military medical manuals. Settlers moving west across the continent packed yarrow seeds because they knew they would be far from any doctor and close to any number of injuries. Yarrow grows wild across most of North America already. It is considered an invasive weed in many states. The plant your great-grandparents valued enough to carry across a continent is currently growing in roadside ditches and being mowed down as a nuisance. A yarrow plant at a nursery costs $3 to $5. Once established, it spreads aggressively. You will have more than you need within 2 seasons. The sixth plant is lavender. You think of it as a fragrance, as a candle scent, as a lotion ingredient in a $40 bottle. Pre-industrial families grew lavender because anxiety, sleeplessness, and headaches do not stop being problems when you have no access to a physician. They need solutions regardless of what the insurance market is doing. A 2014 clinical study published in Phytomedicine found a standardized oral lavender oil preparation performed comparably to lorazepam in patients with generalized anxiety disorder. Lavender is one of the most forgiving plants in cultivation. Full sun, poor soil, low water. It thrives in conditions that kill other plants. Plant it once, and it lives for 10 to 15 years. The seventh plant is valerian. This is the one that surprises people the most. Valerian root was prescribed by physicians in the United States well into the 20th century. It appeared in the British Pharmacopoeia from 1864 to 1948. American physicians used it for nervous tension and sleeplessness for over 100 years of formal medical practice. Then, benzodiazepines were synthesized, patented, and marketed in the 1960s, and valerian quietly moved from pharmacy shelves to the forgotten corner of history. In 2026, with 22 million Americans facing healthcare costs that have become structurally inaccessible, sleep disorders and anxiety are the two fastest-growing categories of self-reported health concerns in national surveys. Both are conditions valerian was formally prescribed for by American physicians for over a century. A valerian plant costs $4. It grows as a perennial. It reaches full root maturity in 2 years. Now let me give you the full picture, because this channel does not hide limitations. These plants are not replacements for emergency medical care. They are not antibiotics. They will not set a broken bone. They will not manage a chronic disease that requires pharmaceutical intervention. If you are managing a serious condition, work with a healthcare provider. What these plants are is exactly what they were to the families who grew them before the modern insurance system existed. A layer of self-reliance, a first line, a daily practice that keeps minor issues from compounding. Your great-grandparents were not anti-medicine. They were practical. They used what was available, what was affordable, and what worked. And they documented the knowledge carefully enough that we can still access it in 2026. Also worth understanding, the legal and regulatory framing here is straightforward. These are legal plants. You can grow them anywhere personal gardening is permitted. No prescription required, no pharmacy benefit needed, no insurance card necessary to plant a seed in soil. Here is what stays with me every time I sit with this. 22 million Americans are losing health coverage in a single legislative cycle. And at this exact moment, sitting in every garden center in every state in America, are the same 7 plants that pre-industrial American families grew as their first and most reliable line of health care. The pharmacopoeias that listed elderberry, valerian, and chamomile didn't disappear because the plants stopped working. They disappeared because plants cannot be patented. Because a $4 perennial that grows back every year for 15 years is not a revenue model. Because an industry generating $4.5 trillion in annual revenue was not built to sustain itself on knowledge that any family can grow in a window box. That knowledge was not destroyed. It was set on a shelf and left to gather dust while synthetic alternatives were marketed in its place. The 22 million Americans losing coverage in 2026 are not going back to pre-industrial life, but they are being pushed toward a level of self-reliance that the last 2 generations never had to think about. And the families who already know these 7 plants, who already have them growing in the yard or on the windowsill, are sitting in a meaningfully different position than the families who don't. I don't know your situation or why you're watching this today. Maybe you just lost coverage and you're looking at a $400 per month premium with a $6,000 deductible and trying to figure out what your options actually are. Maybe you've been thinking about a kitchen garden for years, and this is the year something finally made it feel urgent. Maybe you're just someone who finds it worth knowing that your great-grandparents grew pharmacy-grade medicinal plants in the same soil your backyard is sitting on right now. Whatever brought you here, the answer takes $30, a few pots of soil, and one afternoon. Elderberry, calendula, echinacea, chamomile, yarrow, lavender, valerian. 7 plants, grown by your great-grandparents as a matter of practical survival. Listed in official pharmacopoeias for the better part of American history. Growing in garden centers for $3 to $8 a plant right now. While 22 million Americans discover in real time that the system they were counting on has changed the terms without notice. The knowledge never left. It was just waiting for the moment people needed it enough to go looking. Now you found it, and you won't forget it. Take care, and I'll see you in the next.